All right. Hello again, adventures, and welcome to another exciting daily vlog. This is Daily Vlog 2025, number 2. I think we're at 77 now. Numbers are hard. So, today, I want to talk about something weird. So, if anyone's unaware, I recently got back into World of Warcraft. The main reason being, in a few days here, on October the 7th, they are launching Legion Remix. Legion Remix is basically a weird version of Legion, which is currently my favorite expansion for World of Warcraft. It was the last expansion where I really enjoyed World of Warcraft and played a ton. I played for the entire expansion. I loved it to death. I fell off really, really quickly with Battle for Azeroth. I did not enjoy that in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, oh man, so cool. So Legion Remix is you basically get to replay that expansion, but with a bunch of other kind of nonsense thrown in there. And there's a crap ton of like transmogs and just like visual stuff that you get to keep on your account. So you unlock it in Legion, and then it'll show up everywhere else in the regular game. So I've been playing it again. I've been having fun for the most part. I'm not a big fan of the War Within endgame stuff. It was fun for like a week, and now it's not. But that's not what I want to talk about here. So the next expansion's already been announced. People are theorizing that it's going to actually launch somewhere in the neighborhood of like February or March next year. And they recently started an alpha test for it on their public test realm, which is very cool, very interesting. However, one of the things that Blizzard announced going forward is, I guess we have to start off with, World of Warcraft, more so than I think really any other MMO I've ever seen, really embraces mods and add-ons. And what those are, basically, there is an API for the game that mod makers and add-on makers can access that will allow them to do a little bit of everything. Like back in Wrath of the Lich King, when I was like raiding and playing on a regular basis, I had an add-on that let me play Peggle. If you're unfamiliar with that, it's a game by PopCap Games, and it's kind of like Pachinko, where you launch a little ball into a place with a bunch of pegs in it, and you have to bounce on them, and you try and, by dropping the ball in certain places, you try and, once you bounce on a peg, it disappears. And so the goal of the game is to try and bounce all the pegs gone, using a limited number of balls. It is remarkably fun, and so I had an add-on so that way back in Wrath of the Lich King, where you might be waiting for, half an hour, 45 minutes to get into a dungeon, I would sit there and play this game. And they actually had custom maps specifically for World of Warcraft. Like, they used Warcraft art in it, and it was really, really fun. And that was over a decade ago. Now, it is nonsense, the number of add-ons. Like, the reason I started playing again is I found an add-on called Console Port. And what Console Port does is it just lets you play with a controller. And it works remarkably well. It's not perfect. I would much rather have actual useful controller support in World of Warcraft. It does technically support a controller, but it it doesn't. Like, it recognizes controller inputs, but controller support is a lot more than, you know, the ability to just push a button and for the game to recognize it. Like, you have to be able to navigate menus and things like that. And so console port lets me do that. And that's really the only way that I can play World of Warcraft now. It's the only way that I play MMOs now, because due to my tremor, playing with a keyboard and mouse is really, really hard. It just doesn't work for me. And so with the controller, I just have an easier time doing it, and I can actually like lie back and relax while I'm playing, which helps kind of control my anxiety and everything like that. So literally, if for whatever reason console port couldn't work anymore, I would literally just stop playing World of Warcraft, and I would go back to other MMOs that I can play with controllers. Things like I still love Final Fantasy XIV, even though the current expansion is just not for me, and I really haven't enjoyed it. Elder Scrolls Online, I have spent a significant amount of time creating weird characters and that. I've played Guild Wars 2 with a good controller. So yeah, like when I'm looking for a new MMO, one of the first things I look for is, does this have controller support? So understand that add-ons are a massive, massive part of World of Warcraft and have been for well over a decade, to the point where if you want to do end game content, you actually can't play the game without add-ons. And this is where the problem starts coming in for Midnight. So if you want to do like end game raiding, generally you bare minimum have to have an add-on called Deadly Boss Mods. And what Deadly Boss Mods, or at least that's what it used to be. I'm not sure if that's still what it is, but it used to be. You had to have this add-on called Deadly Boss Mods. And what it does is it uses the API and kind of reads what the boss is doing and gives you warnings before bad things happen. And the reason that you need it is in the game, things are not really telegraphed in a way that for high-end content, you can actually react naturally to what's going on. Like if you just look at what the boss is doing, you will be dead because you will get hit by things that just kind of come out of nowhere or are very poorly telegraphed where you don't know where you need to go. And that's where Deadly Boss Mods comes in. There's another add-on that is extremely popular to I think most raiders. I don't know if it's required like DBM is, but I know a lot of raiders that still use it, is this thing called WeakAuras. And WeakAuras, for lack of a better term, is just nonsense. And for anyone, if anyone is here and is not familiar with my channel and kind of how I speak, when I say nonsense, I don't mean, oh, this is stupid or dumb or anything like that. Nonsense just means that it's very, very complex and very, very complicated. There is good nonsense and bad nonsense, and neutral nonsense and, you know, crazy nonsense and all this other nonsense type nonsense. WeakAuras goes into the kind of good nonsense category. And the reason why WeakAuras, you can't actually explain what WeakAuras does in like a single sentence. You can give like a broad generalization of, well, it allows you to kind of hyper customize the user interface for World of Warcraft, but even that doesn't really explain what WeakAuras does. It is unbelievably massive, the amount of things that you can do. You can take the things and make visual warnings that used to be just audio warnings, and it's just, there's a ton of stuff that WeakAuras can do. And one of the more WeakAuras has been around for a really long time. And for a while, Blizzard has actually kind of been taking some notes from WeakAuras, because it used to be if you had an ability that was activated via a proc, basically you'd hit something and a random there's a random interval where when you use this ability, you hit something, it can trigger something else. That's called a proc. You would have to either listen for a sound to tell you that it had been procced, or more likely than not, what you'd have to do is you'd have to look at like your buff bar where it shows all the buffs and wait to see an icon pop up there that would tell you, oh, now I can use this ability. And it was very unintuitive, and it was actually really difficult, especially in high level content, to be able to play your character well, because you can't keep looking off to the side when you're dealing with all this random crazy stuff on the screen. You need to be focusing on your character. And so one of the things that WeakAuras can do is they can make it so that if you have something that activates and has a limited amount of time, it can make an icon pop up like right next to your character to let you know, that I should use that. And Blizzard years ago started implementing that to where now most classes that have proc abilities, there will be some sort of indication on your character themselves or very close to your character that lets you know, oh, this ability is ready. So Blizzard has been taking notes from WeakAuras for a really, really long time. However, recently with Midnight, they're kind of revamping how the game works. And one of the things that they decided is they want to change kind of how visual the game is and how complicated boss fights are. Because again, right now, if you want to do endgame content, you literally cannot do it unless you download specific add-ons, because the bosses themselves are not designed in a way where the game itself gives you the information that you need to be able to beat the boss. You have to rely on something third party. When you compare that to something like Final Fantasy XIV, in Final Fantasy XIV, everything is telegraphed beautifully. Also in Final Fantasy XIV, add-ons or mods are strictly forbidden. You are not supposed to be using them in any way, shape, or form. And if you get caught using them, you can actually get banned. So because of that, Final Fantasy XIV, you can walk into a brand new boss fight and do relatively well because everything is telegraphed in a way that is very intuitive, and so you can figure out what you're supposed to do. And once you learn what the different telegraphs mean, it basically just becomes kind of reading what's going on and then kind of reacting to it. And it's really, really fun. It's one of the reasons why I enjoy Final Fantasy XIV so much, is because I can run, like I do raiding and endgame stuff all the time in Final Fantasy XIV. I do not do it in any way, shape, or form in World of Warcraft. Because I don't like using a bunch of add-ons and things like that. And I definitely don't like the dungeon scene in World of Warcraft. It's scary in there. So Blizzard's decided that they don't like the fact that you can't play their game without some third-party add-on. So they mentioned that, okay, we're going to massively change how boss battles work and just how World of Warcraft works so that you can actually play it without needing an add-on. And part of those changes is they're actually changing what the API can access. So again, in order for something like WeakAuras or DBM to work, the API they have to be able to pull out of the game in real time things like what attack is the boss doing, and then translate that into, okay, well, this is where you need to stand and this is where you need to do. So Blizzard is changing it to where their API is going to be significantly more restrictive. Theoretically, because you shouldn't need them anymore. They're trying to make the game more playable effectively. Well, again, one of the mods or add-ons that is really, really popular and has been for a very, very long time is WeakAuras. And while, yes, it is useful for endgame content, the reason I call it nonsense is because, again, it does so much. It's not a single add-on. It's like a collect. As far as I understand, I've never actually used it. I've just done a little bit of research specifically for this video. It's kind of a collection of add-ons just in general that allow you to tweak literally everything. But because of the restrictions on the API, it's basically made it impossible for WeakAuras to continue operating in Midnight, which is the new World of Warcraft expansion coming out next year. And so WeakAuras made this announcement saying, "Hey guys, we're really sorry about this, but we can't support Midnight anymore. The API literally won't let us. It's just, if we were to try, we'd have to basically rewrite the entire thing, and it's just not something that we can do." And the reason they know this is they've worked with Blizzard, and they've done they've been messing around in the alpha and stuff like that, so that they can figure out, what they can and can't do. And the solution that they've come to is basically, yeah, we can't do this. It's just not physically possible anymore. And it's been weird seeing the reactions to that, because a lot of people are getting really mad at Blizzard because Blizzard is doing this horrible thing. Blizzard is destroying WeakAuras. And I don't see it that way. And I'm a little bit confused about the kind of anger. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of reasons to be angry at Blizzard. But everyone is basically going, gosh, I can't believe Blizzard is doing this horrible, disgusting thing. They're destroying add-ons. No, they're not. They're trying to make the game more playable, which is something that I want. I don't like the fact that I can't do endgame content without installing a bunch of add-ons. But again, WeakAuras is not just stuff to make the game playable, or technically it is, but one of the communities that have been talking about it is the disabled community in general, of which I belong. Things like people that are deaf or hard of hearing have been using WeakAuras so that it would translate audio cues that they can't hear into something visual, whether that was posting something in chat, and vice versa. For people that are visually impaired, it was able to do things like take things out of chat and give you audio warnings and things like that, so that you could still play the game. And if anyone's going, wait a minute, blind people play video games? Yeah, they do. A lot of them do, remarkably enough. I think one of my favorite ones was watching, there was this dude that was, he was playing Zelda Ocarina of Time completely blind. And not completely blind as in, I put a blindfold. I mean, they could not see anything. And it was really, really cool seeing how they played the game, which is very differently than how I play the game, because I can see. I thought that was really, really interesting. So the fact that WeakAuras, as of right now, won't have an updated version for Midnight is not just you won't need it, because Blizzard's no longer making these incredibly cryptic boss battles that you literally can't beat unless you have an add-on. But the kind of side effect of them trying to turn it into a game that you can just play out of the box is the changes that they have made is destroying WeakAuras, and is having a really, really big impact. Because again, from a disability aspect, it added accessibility that theoretically Blizzard might be able to do, but my guess is they won't, because it takes a lot of time and effort to create systems like that, and they're already doing other things. And then there's also people like they use it to kind of customize their UI, or a lot of other things that have nothing to do to technically making the game easier. And that's what, as far as my understanding of the situation is, that's what Blizzard wants to get rid of, is mods that basically make it so that the game is easier. They don't like that. So yeah, it's been kind of bothering me listening to people talk about how, oh, Blizzard is this horrible, disgusting company that's screwing over everybody. They're not in this particular instance. They're trying to fix a problem that they know of, which is endgame stuff is unplayable without someone else doing the dirty work for them, which is a good thing. And I think I don't think it's okay that World of Warcraft, which is almost 20 years old now. I think it'd be 20 years old next year, maybe. Um, is unplayable without mods, and this is not. When I say it's unplayable, I'm not just this is saying, oh man, the game cheats. No, I mean literally, you can't beat bosses because they will do things and you will have no warning and no time to make your character react to that, and you'll just die. Um, and they've never had to go through the effort like what Final Fantasy 14 did to actually create telegraphs and things like that allow players to actually react to the bosses, because they've always had DB Deadly Boss mods and WeakAuras and a bunch of other things. I remember when I was raiding in Wrath of the Lich King, because DPS just didn't raid. Not in my guild. I mean, they did, but there was no way I was getting it as DPS because we had billions of them. And so I started doing healing. And it literally was impossible for me to do high-level content without a mod called HealBot. And basically all HealBot did was it changed the interface so that if you clicked on a player's name, you could basically link your healing spells to certain clicks. So if I left-clicked in this frame that they created for me for all of the people in my raid, if I left clicked on someone's name, I would cast this spell. If I right clicked on their name, I would cast this spell. If I middle clicked, I'd do this. And then I could shift click and control click, and it gave me just all of these different options instead of having to select the person I wanted to do, select the spell that I wanted to cast the spell, and then hopefully it kept going. So yeah, I'm a bit torn. I really hate the idea that's being spread that, oh man, Blizzard's doing all these horrible things. No, they're trying to fix their broken game. It just so happens that the collateral damage of that is ruining something that a lot of people use, including the disabled community. And to be blunt, I don't think WeakAuras is gone forever. Either Blizzard is going to come up with a way to fix it, so that all the functionality of WeakAuras is still there, or someone else is just going to pick up the mantle. But yeah, it feels so weird that people are going, I can't believe that Blizzard is killing WeakAuras. They're not. They have no intention to kill WeakAuras. They don't have any problem with WeakAuras. It's just the fact that a lot of the aspects of the API that WeakAuras uses to be able to do things have also been kind of abused by other add-on makers that basically allow the game to kind of play itself. Again, in Final Fantasy 14, there was actually a pretty big scandal because somebody was doing really hard endgame content, and they installed a mod on that basically told them where the danger areas are going to be, because it's basic. I mean, that's most MMOs. Is there's a spot, if you stay there, bad things will happen to you, so get out of the spot. And the thing that makes them challenging is different bosses will telegraph it differently. Or in the case of World of Warcraft, they won't telegraph it at all, and you just have to pretend that you know what's going on. So this Final Fantasy 14 player, they used this mod that basically told them before they would have found out through the game where the bad spots were, and they were able to play basically perfectly because they were effectively cheating. They were getting information that they weren't supposed to have. And so the idea that in Final Fantasy XIV that will get you banned, and in World of Warcraft, not doing that will get you banned from most guilds. So yeah, like I said, I don't think, I'm not anti add-on. Again, if this API change affects console port, that's it. I'm done. I will not play World of Warcraft anymore because I need to be able to play with a controller. So it's not that I'm anti add-on or anything like that, but I also have not been happy. It's one of the reasons I stopped playing WoW years ago. I don't like the fact that I can't just install this game and play it. Like, I have to put all these different mods on it. I think, to me, that's proof that the devs are or the programmers or whoever's doing things is missing the point, and they're performing very poorly. Like, the bare minimum for a game that's people have been enjoying for like nearly 20 years should be that you can install the game and play all the content without having to deep dive into the code and change things to make it playable. And again, things like Deadly Boss mods isn't making the game easier, it's making the game playable. But again, there are other mods that use that same information but just make the game significantly easier, or will automate the things for your character so that you don't actually have to learn how to play your character. The computer, the add-on, effectively plays it for you. Not really, not like full-on like botting, but it kind of automates a lot of things. So yeah, interested to hear from you guys. First of all, do I have any WoW players out there in the audience? Second of all, what are your thoughts on the idea of Blizzard is trying to change the game so that you are not required to have mods to play endgame content? What are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's a smokescreen? Do you think it's actually that no, we want to get rid of mods? Do you think, kind of same vein as me, the fact that this is a 20-year-old game that people can't play without mods is a huge problem, or are you kind of somewhere in the middle? Let me know in the comments down below. Otherwise, again, it's all for me today, and I will see you guys next time. All right? Bye-bye.